Hi everyone, Ashley here and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing how I made this cute Thanksgiving card featuring my favorite animal, the cat. Lots of cats from some of Lawn Fawn's newest stamp sets, including their Purrfectly Wicked and Purrfectly Wicked add-on set, all framed with this beautiful leafy background die. So without further ado, let's get into the card making. I'm starting with that background die, and as you can see here, it's a frame that includes a bunch of leaves kind of pointing in towards the center. This is also one of Lawn Fawn's newest released products, and it's just really beautiful and detailed. I cut it out of some white cardstock, and I'm using 4 different colors of Distress Oxide here to blend on, and I have my 4 blending brushes kind of off to the side and ready to go. So for each color, I'm just taking that blending brush and sort of blending the ink on from the outside, gently on in sort of little splotches at a time. So I started with the green and I blended it on in the corner, and then I moved on to the red and blended it on in a little splotch beside it. Then I'm just going through the colors sort of randomly. I'm not necessarily going in order and repeating. I'm just sort of putting them on so that there's a nice distribution of the colors. And I'm also taking the blending brushes and going back and forth between the colors to make sure that I get a really nice blend between them. I did find that when I blended the red and the green, it almost made a brown color, which I was actually fine with because, of course, this is going for a very fall and autumnal vibe. So brown is definitely one of the colors that works well for that. So I just kept going around in a circle until I had the whole panel coated. I am using some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock for this because I find that it's a really nice cardstock for blending. And I'm not really taking care to blend, like I said, the colors in order or in any specific spots, just really messy, putting them on, blending back and forth. And then when you're done, you get this beautiful product where you see all the different swatches of color. And I think it works really well for fall because in autumn, you have all the leaves falling, you really don't need it to be perfect. Okay, next I'm blending the background of this card, and this piece will go behind that fall frame to sort of make the backdrop for the critters and almost look like the sky. I'm using a very light orange and a very light pink Distress Oxide ink, and again just using my blending brushes to blend those onto the whole panel, just kind of making a bit of an ombre, blending back and forth between the colors until I get a nice blend. At the bottom, I'm adding this light brown color. This is brushed corduroy, and this is meant to sort of be the ground where the critters will be sitting on. You don't really see this too much in the final card, but it is good to be there. It peeks through a little bit. By the way, if you do want to see the exact colors of Distress Oxide ink that I'm using on this card, check out that video description below this video where I've listed all of the products, including those colors. Okay, on to the stamping. Like I mentioned, I am stamping out a bunch of images from some of the newest Lawn Fawn released stamp sets, including their Purrfectly Wicked and Purrfectly Wicked add-on sets. These were sets released, I guess, for Halloween. They're mostly Halloween themed with some cute little sort of spell books and cauldrons and things and a witch's hat, but you can take the critters themselves, the cats, and really use them for any occasion, which is what I was excited to do, and that's why I'm making this Thanksgiving card with them. So I'm excited to also use those cats for other occasions in the future, like maybe a birthday or something like that. I also took some images from other Lawn Fawn stamp sets that are a bit older, mostly this stamp set called Forest Feast, which has that big stump, which I'll stamp out in a moment, and a whole bunch of little sort of food items to go on the table, which I find so cute, including just like a little plate of food and little cups for each of the critters to have in front of them. So I stamped out a whole bunch of those too. I'm stamping out all the images on some white Nina Solar White cardstock, which I find is really nice for stamping, and Copic coloring, which I'll be doing in a moment. And I'm stamping out this big stump in brown ink, and for this I just used a brown Distress Oxide ink, which isn't the best ink for stamping, so I do stamp it multiple times to get a fairly good image. I just didn't really have another brown color of ink that I liked. I think that's something I need to look into adding to my collection, clearly. But this works well, especially once you can stamp it out multiple times to get a decent image. The stamping works out okay. So now I'm going to go ahead onto the Copic coloring, and I'm going to showcase some of the coloring for this card. Not all of it, because it did take me a while to color all of these images, but I'll just show you especially how I colored these cats, because of course these cats are sort of the focal point of this card, and they are sort of some of the newer images that have come out from Lawn Fawn, so I thought this would be nice. So for this first cat, I'm just taking a shade of sort of orangey brown and just going around the edges of the cat. Then I'm taking a much lighter shade, I think this is E00 or something like that, and just blending out that darker shade. And then I'm leaving the center of this cat white. I just wanted that to be a cat that has sort of that white belly and white paws and sort of white center of its face. So the fun part about these cats, of course, is that you can color them however you want and make sort of any different pattern of cat that you can imagine. I typically like to color them like my own cats or cats that I've had in the past. So right now I have a gray Russian blue cat named Luna, who you may have seen in some of my other videos. She definitely likes to make an appearance in my craft room. In fact, I think she makes an appearance in this video. She is gray, like I mentioned. She's a Russian blue, so I do love coloring cats gray for that reason. Plus, it's like such an easy color and easy way to color cats. She's just solid gray. But when I want to have fun, I also color cats in other patterns. So that's why I colored that one with the brown sort of outside and white belly. Now I'm coloring this one mostly grayish black, but leaving some parts more white, such as the center of its face and tip of its tail. And then for that last cat, I'm just going to do this one calico. I've never had a calico cat, but I think they are so cute, and they're actually super easy to color because you just take a few different shades. I took a couple browns and a gray, and you just kind of go around and make little splotches and you're done. So those are super easy, but also super, super cute. For all the cats, I'm just adding some little pink to their ears and nose, and then that is it. I did go ahead and color all of the other images off camera, and you'll see those in a moment when I start assembling the card. Okay, so now I'm working on the sentiment. And for this, I'm using a sentiment from another one of Lawn Fawn's newer stamp sets. This is the Scripty Autumn Greetings stamp set. And I'm stamping out the big word thanks, the Scripty thanks, again in brown ink. I'm just using that same brown ink I used on the stump so everything matches. I'm using my Misty tool to make sure I get a really nice impression by stamping it twice. I'm just stamping that onto some white cardstock, and then I will use the coordinating dies, which came with this die set, to cut it out, which just creates this really nice border around the word and helps it kind of stand out on your card. So the alternative, of course, would have been to just stamp this directly onto the card itself, onto the panel, but I like the idea of having that sort of white edge around the word that really does help it pop. So that's why I did it this way. So there is that word die cut, and I can pull it up now and kind of pick it out from the paper, and you can see that it is all done. Okay, so now that I have all the elements of my card basically ready, it's time to start assembling it. So I have a white standard size card base. Again, that's A2 is what I consider standard size, I guess, and that's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and this is a landscape card. I took my panel that I blended with the sky and the ground, and I just added some glue to the back and put that right down onto my card base. You can see there that off camera I did go ahead and stamp out the word give right onto that card panel, and that's going to sort of coordinate with that die cut word thanks, so the whole sentiment will say give thanks. I kind of had like laid out a lot of the images onto the card to try and figure out where I needed to stamp that off camera. I glued that whole fall frame onto the panel as well using some liquid glue, just kind of adding little dabs, but I did not glue down the bottom part of it because I knew that I wanted to stick this little stump behind and have the leaves on top. So I'm putting my stump down now and just gluing that straight down onto the panel, and then once that's in place, I can come in and add glue to the back of all those leaves and glue them down on top of the stump so that everything is nice and glued down. Before I do that, I couldn't help but just glue these little pilgrim hats onto these cats. I think they're so cute. Those little hats came in another Lawn Fawn stamp set. I believe it's called Holiday Party Animal. Again, check that description below the video to see all the details on the stamp sets and colors of inks and everything that I used. But I just think that they're so cute, and I always pull out that set when I do Thanksgiving cards that have critters, because then I can put the little hats on the critters. So once I have those all done, I'm just adding some foam squares to the back of these cats with their little hats on and putting them in place so I have an idea of where I want them to be. I knew I wanted one big cat on either side of the stump. Okay, so coming back to this frame, like I mentioned, I am now adding some glue down to the bottom of that frame where I had left it off before so that I could tuck in the stump, and I can now glue that down and hold it down so it really sticks, and now everything will be glued down onto the panel. Okay, I'm bringing in some of the other images that I had colored and die cut here. I did add a fourth cat because I had actually colored and stamped and colored that one for a different card and not used it. So I had it sort of left over just sitting on my table, and I thought I could bring it in for this card to really fill out the little group here sitting around the stump eating their Thanksgiving dinner. So now that I have everything sort of assembled where I think it's gonna be and where I want it to go, I'm just starting to glue down everything and adhere it down onto the card. I started with the sentiment thanks, and I just added a couple little dots of liquid glue behind that word and stuck it right down. Then I can come back in with each of the little critters and little bowls of food and just add them down to the card as well. For a lot of these elements, I'm using foam. So for the two cats off to the sides of the sentiment, I use some foam squares to give them a little bit of dimension. And then for a bunch of the little bowls of food and plates of food on the table, I also added some foam squares to those as well. So everything kind of sticks off the bottom. I added the little gravy boat into the cat's hand just because I thought that was really cute, and it didn't really fit on the table, but it fit into his little hand. I also added a little worm onto the table. I hope that's not too gross. I think of it as a cute little friendly worm who's joining in on the dinner. And then I'm just figuring out where to put this last little piece, which is just an apple, and I just stuck it right onto the front to kind of fill out the table scene. Okay, as a last detail, I just thought that there was a little bit too much space at the top side of the card. I thought that there was like so much detail and so much going on in the bottom, and I felt like the top was a bit empty. So I'm just taking some leaves that I had actually colored, stamped and colored for another different card before and had left over, so they're easy to just pull out of my little cup and add them into the sky, kind of like they're flying through the sky, and I feel like that kind of fills it out. You can see my cat Luna, like I was mentioning, has now joined in the video. I think she approves of the card. I think she likes that there's lots of cats on it. Either that or she really disapproves because it's taking my time away from petting her. We'll never know. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you got some, inspiration and ideas for how to make some different and unique cards using critters that are themed for one thing, but can be used for another. So thank you again. If you do want to see more of my cards, make sure to head over to my Instagram account, which is linked down in the description below. I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.